You're tuned to Night Nerves, where if it's scary, creepy, thrilling, or disturbing, we read it, watch it, and talk about it. I'm Sam, and I recently spent too much money on books, but I'm very happy with what I got. Got some cool stuff, some rare stuff, and I thought we would look at them together and talk about them. So yeah, without further ado, let's see what I got. The first book I picked up is a common novel, but it's not very common in this format. This is Stephen King's Night Shift. What introduction does Night Shift need? It was Stephen King's first short story collection. Before he got really big, he was writing some of these stories, sending them to lurid men's magazines like Playboy and Cavalier. A lot of these stories were featured in those magazines, and this is my favorite Stephen King short story collection. I've read almost all of his short story collections with the exception of Bazaar of Bad Dreams and You Like It Darker. I always return to Night Shift. I've reread these stories dozens of times. I'm always recommending this collection to other people. I have at least 2 paperback copies of Night Shift, but I've really wanted it in hardcover for a while, and I'm glad I got it. The next book that I got is Poppy Zebright's Lost Souls. Similar to Night Shift, this is a book I've already read that I wanted to own in hardcover because I loved it so much. This is a vampire story. It's kind of a non-traditional vampire story. It doesn't have a lot of the tropes and trappings of a typical vampire story. I would say in a lot of ways this is kind of like a punk rock vampire story. It follows a band of vampires and all the people they encounter along the way. Several different stories converge on one another. It's a lot of hang out with these characters, but man, I loved every minute of it. A really big fan of Bright's writing. I'm excited to reread this again one day, and now I got it in hardcover. The next book I picked up has a great cover on it, The Wilds by Claude Twelez. Don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm sorry, Claude, if I'm butchering it. I actually have another book written by Claude that was published by Zebra called The Stalker. This is published by Dell. It's got this great cover on it of this snowy mountain that has a skull in it and an axe on the ground in front of it. It's got an endorsement from Peter Straub, rest in peace, on the cover. I'll read it right now. It says, "Unrelenting disasters, ghostly tales, persecutions and horror, nature and man at their rawest in the wilds." Peter likes it. What more can you say? It's gotta be decent, right? Back kind of gives, I think, a better picture. I don't want to know too much. If you know me, I like to go in blind, but I saw it in the blurb. It mentions the Donner Party, so I think I can see where this is going. Also on the back is a comparison to Deliverance and Lord of the Flies. It says, "If Deliverance scared you, if Lord of the Flies shocked you, you're ready for a trip into the tear of the wilds." Definitely a winter read. We'll have to see if it makes my winter reading list. Up next is a book by another author whose name I will most likely butcher. This is Falling Angel by William Jortsberg. I think that's right. Sorry, William. There's 2 reasons why I wanted to pick up this novel. It's been on my list for a while. One, this is the novel that the movie Angel Heart was based on. Angel Heart is a kind of a hybrid between a neo-noir and a horror film. It starred Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro. And secondly, an author that I really like named Carl Edward Wagner listed this as one of his favorite horror novels of all time, and that was enough to sell me on it. A lot of people seem to really enjoy this book, and I'm excited to get around to reading it. Moving right along, we have Ghoul by Brian Keene. This is supposed to be a coming-of-age summer horror novel in the vein of Stephen King's It, Dan Simmons' Summer of Night, so that's right up my alley. I've heard really good things about Brian Keene's writing. He seems to have a dedicated fan base. He has a pretty big catalog from what I can tell, and in addition to people being a fan of his writing, I've heard he's a pretty cool guy. He seems to always champion lesser known authors, put them in front of more readers, and I think that's super cool. I'm excited to read my very first Brian Keene novel. The next book is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes by Eric LaRocca. This story, from what I know, is about two lesbian women who have a lot of mental and personal issues, who are communicating via a chat room, talking to one another, trying to work through some problems, and they end up creating more problems. It's supposed to be disturbing, it's supposed to be gross. I've also heard people say that there is a gross scene involving an apple peeler. So yeah, got that to look forward to. This is one of those novels that got really hyped up on Book Talk, and a lot of people felt let down, as they usually are when something gets really, really hyped up. People are very divided on this. I've heard some people say that they thought it was really edgelordy or trying too hard to be disgusting, and I've heard other people who think that it was very effective. Despite all the division, I'm very excited to check this out, give it a read. The premise is very intriguing to me. If you've read it, I'd love to know your thoughts. This next book is The Long Dark Night, written by David Fisher, also known as The Pack. If you can't tell from the cover, this is a novel about killer dogs. I believe more specifically, it is about rich families that go on a vacation. They adopt a puppy to bring with them on the vacation, and at the end, they abandon the dog. This happens over and over again. It's a common practice, and pretty soon there's a bunch of very angry dogs that want to kill people. If you couldn't tell from my review of Hellhound, I'm a big fan of killer dogs. Love novels when animals attack. Been looking for this one for a while. I'm glad I found it, and I can't wait to read it. This is one that I think Valancourt put out. If I can find it, I will link all the books I can link below. I will. So if you're interested in any of these, check down below. I got two Christopher Pike books here. The first one is Master of Murder. Man, I love the cover of this. It's so 90s. It's got the old computer on it. It's got a floppy disk drive. A lot of people probably don't even know or remember what a floppy disk drive was, but they existed. It's here, immortalized on the cover of this book. This is apparently one of Christopher Pike's more celebrated novels. It follows an outcast kid who is a writer. He's actually a very popular writer, but he writes under a pseudonym, so no one knows who he is. He gets some scary fan mail, and I think things get bad from there. It's more than I should know, more than I want to know. I'm just excited to read a Christopher Pike novel that people are excited about. So Master of Murder is a pretty common Christopher Pike novel for people to come across. This one is far less common. This is Tales of Terror #2. This is a short story collection that Christopher Pike did. It's the sequel to Tales of Terror #1. Obviously. I don't know what it is about this book. It's hard to find, and when you do find it, they are asking for quite a pretty penny. In any case, I'm very happy to have a copy of this novel. I love me some Christopher Pike, and it's nice to have it in little bite-sized bits. This is another book that I've wanted for a while. I really didn't think I was going to get it in this format. This is Maynard's House by Herman Rocher. Another beautiful cover. I love the look of it. It doesn't scream horror. It's kind of got a cozy, slightly eerie vibe to it. I know nothing about paint or artwork. It looks like it's maybe an oil painting. Very beautiful. Something I would hang up in my house if I had a house. What do I know about this story? I believe it is about a Vietnam vet who inherits a house from his brother up north, and it's very isolated. He goes up there and weird stuff starts to happen, as you would guess. It's a common setup that I think always has the potential to be amazing. I'm very excited. I would be shocked if this doesn't end up on my winter reading list. All right, the next 5 novels I have are all by the same author, and that author is Guy N. Smith. Guy N. Smith is a prolific pulp horror author. He started publishing in the 70s, and he continued publishing up until the time of his death in 2020. Sometimes he was putting out as many as 4 novels a year. Has a huge catalog of work. His books are a mixture of being gross, violent, hilarious, and just a lot of fun. He definitely has a vibe to him, and I really dig it. You either like it or you don't. And his books are incredibly hard to find. He was a British author, and I think they're hard to find even in England. They're certainly very hard to find here in the States. I was very happy to get these to add to the small collection of Guy N. Smith novels that I have. The first one I have is called Water Rights. This is a zebra book from the 90s. I don't really know anything about water rights. Looks eerie though. This next one is called Phobia, also from the 90s, published by Grafton. I believe this is his haunted house novel. Sounds very appealing to me. Guy N. Smith writing a haunted house novel. It's gonna be a good time. This book is called Demons. Demons is a sequel to a novel called Death Bell, which I actually had an opportunity years ago to pick up for cheap, but I hadn't read any Guy N. Smith, and like an idiot, I went to Goodreads to read reviews on it, and a lot of people were very negative on his work, on the novel. They said the writing wasn't good, the story wasn't good, the dialogue wasn't good. I didn't pick it up. I really regret not doing so. I definitely need to pick it up now so that I can read Demons. Up next is The Master. Really cool cover on this one as well. I believe this one takes place at a boarding school where some satanic and witchy stuff is happening. And the last book I got from Guy N. Smith is maybe the one I was the most eager to find. This book is called Cannibals. We need to take a moment to appreciate this horrifying and beautiful cover. There's this humanoid creature. He's got blood all over him. He's clearly eating someone's organs. It's so heavy metal. It's so unapologetically horror. I love it. It's terrifying. And in addition to the cover being awesome, I've heard this is a really good story, at least for Guy N. Smith standards. So I gotta find an excuse to read this soon. All right, and last, but certainly not least, this is The Kill Riff by David J. Scow. Another incredible cover. If you can't see, it's a guy playing a guitar and the headstock is a double barrel shotgun that's being fired. What do I know about The Kill Riff? Well, David J. Scow describes it as being a thriller rather than a horror novel, but it was marketed as a horror novel because he is primarily a horror author. It follows a Vietnam vet whose daughter gets trampled at a concert, and he decides to go on a killing spree and kill everyone who's involved or who he thinks is involved. That's all that I've heard about it. That's all I need to know. Sounds awesome. If you're not familiar with David J. Scow, he is, I think, a very important horror author. He's written dozens of short stories, only a couple novels, and a handful of screenplays. He was a co-writer on The Crow. He wrote that with John Shirley, who's also an incredible author. He's credited with coining the phrase splatterpunk, which is the genre of horror that shares a lot of commonalities with extreme horror. It's typically extreme horror mixed with some sort of social or political commentary. He wrote episodes for The Outer Limits. He had a column in Fangoria, just all over the place. Really cool author. He mixes pulp with literary horror. Not easy to do. An additional reason why I am very excited to finally get this novel, to give it a read, is because I'm at the tail end of a horror novel I'm writing, and it's kind of similar in genre. It's not a thriller, it's definitely a horror novel. It's a heavy metal horror novel that has pulp elements. It's got some splatterpunk in it. I should have read this before, but I'm excited to read this nonetheless. I'm gonna compare and contrast the two, so I gotta figure out an opportunity to read this sometime soon. All right, let's see if we can get all these books into frame without me dropping them. Oh, there you go. That is my book haul. Very excited. They're very heavy. I'm gonna put them down now. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video. Man, it is really, really hot in this room. I have no AC. There's a fan going. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything except making noise. But thank you. Thank you for hanging out, seeing all these books. And a huge thank you to all the subscribers, new and old. It's really, really crazy. Before the last video I published, I had 51 subscribers, most of which were friends of mine and family members. A lot of them don't even like horror. They were just being supportive. And now we have 1.5K subscribers. It's insane. I can't believe it. I really appreciate all the comments, the feedback, the discourse about horror, about these novels, other people's recommendations. It's super cool to see a community forming around this, and I want to keep it going. So thank you again for liking, for subscribing, for sharing. Keep doing that, please. I have a lot more videos planned. I want to start recording more, putting out more videos. I will actually show you a list of ideas I have for the channel. These are all ideas, topics. Look, it's still going. Oh, there you go. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff here. Thank you again. I hope to see you in the next video. Stay spooky.